Good evening, my name is Gothic Lord UK, and today I will be playing a Satellite to the Scoop 28 event, which is the Deuce to 7 triple draw, and as such I have decided to record my play, one in part to make me talk out loud as I go, which means that I will hopefully make better decisions for voicing them aloud rather than just making otherwise spewy decisions, and secondly, just because if I then do win a seat, then I can go on to film myself playing the main event and do that as well. So we are playing Deuce 7 triple draw. We get 5 cards. There is a round of betting. We can discard up to 5 cards. There is a second round of betting. We can discard again. There is a third round of betting. We can discard one last time, which is the third time. And there is a final round of betting before showdown. Betting is done as limit. It's 1,000 chips per entry. It is a rebuy event, and the levels are fairly short, and we expect the game to be over fairly shortly. Let me just adjust my audio here. And so, first decision, we've just bought in for a full stack. We get to sit on the button, which is nice. Do we want to rebuy up to 2k? I'm going to not just yet. I'm going to see if I can't see if there's any kind of spewy players here. Oftentimes players might play for high ranked hands, whereas the best hand in this game is Deuce Tray 4, 5, 7, and as such players will often try and play absolute trash relatively to the hand ranking chart, oftentimes seeing players show down flushes which are counted against you when trying to score a low hand. Let me just disable my screen dimmer. My screen gets darker at night to be a little bit easier on the eyes, but it makes for a terrible recording. So at the moment we're getting a lot of people registering in the late stages here, and so we are just going to keep playing a reasonably tight game until we get a hand, and then once we do have any reasonable 3-card drawing hand, we will be putting in many bets and rebuying where we see necessary. We are playing for $215 tickets to the Scoop 28 medium event, which is a $215 Deuce 7 triple draw event on Tuesday night, which is the 13th, my calendar tells me. I have the 14th off work, and so can afford to play to the wee hours of the morning should things go well in that event. And so it's unlimited rebuys for 1,000 chips for $8, available for 30 minutes of play. Players must have 1,000 chips or less to be able to rebuy, and there is one add-on of 1,500 chips for $8 after the rebuy period. Look at that guy, he just showed down a flush. That is exactly what I'm speaking about. If we pull that up, there you go. So, fold that. There we are. So this guy showed down a flush, so he clearly doesn't understand the hand ranking chart. We're just going to make a very quick note. Plays for high. Probably not going to be that worthwhile a note long term, but doesn't hurt. We also saw Zbad there make a reasonably good hand with an 8-6 low. Generally in this game you want to be making 7 lows and 8 lows, of course without straights involved in there, because straights are high and count against you in this game, as we have established. So 3 and 6 is not a good enough hand to be opening with. Generally what we want to be seeing is at least 3 cards ranked between a deuce and a 7, one of them being a deuce. I wouldn't play, say, 4, 5, 7, 3, 6, 7. All those hands are trash because you have to basically catch a deuce in order to have a hand that's going to be even capable of winning at showdown. Excuse me while I yawn. And so let's just, where's our lobby? It's down here. And so if I, can we pull up a calculator? Got my calculator up on the other screen there. 215 times 2 is $430. Divide that by $8. So we need 53 entries in order to have a second ticket available to another player. Of course, any money that's paid for above the cost of the $215 ticket will be paid out as a cash prize to second place. Which, honestly, if the prize pool is a $215 ticket and $186 in cash for second place, I ain't gonna be upset at getting second place, because either I can then go on to buy into the event if I want to, or if for whatever reason I decide not to buy into the event, I'm up money, so can't complain. Late registration is open for 30 minutes, I believe. That's time bank. Extended reg, 20 minutes. And unlimited rebuys available 30 minutes of play. So last registration 20 minutes, last rebuys and add-ons 30 minutes. I'm going to check the auto add-on button. I'm going to pay the $8 for the extra 1500 chips when it rocks round. I think most of any remaining field will be doing that. And our blinds are currently 80 and 60, so the level is 80 and 60, which means that or rather, is level 2, the stake is 80 and 160, which means the blinds are half that, which are 40 and 80. Again, this guy's tried trips that last hand and has decided to rebuy, so he's still not learnt that high hands aren't worth anything. And it does look like we are on a 5-minute break. Can I fill 5 minutes of time? So this guy, previously he had a flush, which he didn't win the hand with. And so why he hasn't figured out that the low hands are winning, it amazes me that I can understand the first time you show down, you go, oh, I have a flush, oh, I didn't win. Why didn't I win? Oh, the guy that had the lowest scoring hand won, I will then go for low scoring hands. There's no way this guy is drawing. If he had, say, deuce 3, 7, 7, 7, then yeah, he can have drawn 2 on the end, somehow court trip 7s, and theoretically be drawing to a low hand. But this hand is so strong that he can't accidentally make this strong of a hand. You have to be going for a strong hand in order to get there. I'm gonna yawn again. Excuse me. And so, what hands do we want to be looking for in this game? As I was saying, hands with a deuce and a 7 in are generally regarded as the best starting hands, because you're then drawing to the top 4 hands in the game, which is a 7-6 low, a 7-5 low, sorry, that's a 7-6 low or a 7-5 low. The 7-5 low is obviously the nuts, because you have deuce, tray, 4, 5, 7. That's 7 with a 5 kicker. And then the other 3 hands are 7-6, and then missing the subsequent cards below. So 7-6-4, 7-6-3, 7-6-5, 7-6-4, 7-6-3, and so forth. I explained that horribly, never mind. And so, when showing down 2 hands against one another, if you have 2 hands that are in similar standings and you're trying to figure out who won the hand, provided that no player has made a pair against 5 unpaired cards, because 5 unpaired cards will always beat a pair unless it's a flush or a straight, as we've discussed, you start from the highest card. So if 2 players both have a 9 in their hands and that's the highest card, you go down. If they then both have a 7 in their hands and that's the next highest card, you then go down. And then if one player has a 6 and one player has a 5 and 2 lower cards, the player with the 5 wins, because 5 is lower than 6 and we're going for low cards. Interestingly, in this game, an ace is always a 13, 14. Ace is always a 14 and never a 1. And so if you were looking at the numerical values of the cards, the deuce is the smallest card. And so if you happen to be holding ace, deuce, tray, 4, 5 in your hand, that is not a straight. That is 5 high with an ace kicker, effectively, for want of a better way to phrase that. And so if you had that hand versus trips, trips would lose, ace high would win. Whereas if you had trips versus deuce tray 4-5-6, deuce tray 4-5-6 makes a straight. Straights are more valued in regular hold'em than trips, and so the trips will win being the lower ranked hand. So we've got another minute of break here, and one presumes that the registration in the rebuy will extend by 5 minutes for the break. It's been so long since I've played a tournament online, I can't specifically remember, yet alone a rebuy turbo tournament. Generally I play standard speed, deuce to 7 multi-table tournaments when I do play online, if I'm not just grinding micro stakes, hold'em and all that. What information do we have? Rebuy period ends after 30 minutes, we know that. Hand for hand will be published after registration closes because we don't know how many players are going to be on the tables. And so we've got less than 60 seconds left, and so hopefully my meandering time void space filling will soon end. We've got a couple of people with fairly large stacks here. Of course, they probably bought in for 2 bullets and have doubled up since. If I'm still just edging under the 1000 chip mark at the 20-minute count, I will rebuy to 2k and then take my add-on for 1.5k for a total buy-in stack of 3.5k. When the rebuy period ends, that will be after a half hour, we will be on level 6, the blinds will be 300, 600, and so we need to really get something going sooner rather than later. If nobody else comes along, even with this trash hand, I'm inclined to raise against dealer 18, simply because we've seen him show down so many trash hands. And so after a raise and a re-raise, obviously they probably want dealer 18's money as much as I do, but I don't have a hand that I can be competing 4 ways with. And so Bomo Sticks is probably going to get, or Bimbo Sticks rather, is going to try and get all in, and I can't see why Defco wouldn't let him get there, as in get to being all in, given that he's got so little left behind. And so you'll see after the second draw, the bet becomes 160, which is effectively like the big bet street in stud or Raz. And so when they say stakes, the small blind is half of the first portion of the stake, the big blind is the first portion there of the stake, and then the big bet round is after 2 draws. They then bet in order of the 160, or in increments rather of 160. So Bimbo Sticks shows down a solid hand with 8-6, and Defco showed down an 8-7-6-4 draw where he caught a 9, and that's a pretty terrible draw. So we're going to raise here. We are out of position, but Zebad has shown to be reasonably competent, and so we know he's not going to be playing too wide, and we think we can win against dealer 18. I'm even going to keep the 9 here, and now we're just going to bet every street of value we can with our made 9-7. Against any other player, I wouldn't be playing this hand, but because we know dealer 18 is so terrible, we can A, get value from whatever hand he might make, and B, our opponents will see us show down 9-7 and hopefully think, oh, this guy's an idiot, he's playing 9-7. But in that case, we do just win a small pot, which we're more than happy to take down. If this folds to us, we would have been raising again against dealer 18's big blind, regardless of our hand. As it goes, we don't have enough of a holding. And so between the rebuys and so forth, there is now a second place prize of currently $9. But it's nicer to be playing for 2 prizes than just one, of course. That effectively doubles our chance of cashing if there's 2 prizes rather than one. I think that logic works. And we are just keeping our eye on the clock. Where does it say we've been running? Running 14 minutes, and so we're just going to keep an eye out for that if it ticks over to 20 minutes, just to see if we have less than 1k to rebuy that second bullet. Dealer 18 going to rebuy again. We should be able to see what he had that last hand, given that we showed it down. Trip 10s, no good. And again, he got all in for the second time with a flush, and he just didn't learn that flushes are bad. 7-6, as much as I'd like to be coming along here, is just not good enough. I am playing reasonably tight, but as it's a limit game, there's less room for bluffing, and words, use them. It's a limit game, so there's less room for bluffing, and my position's not good, my holding's not great, I've got no solid draw. This, however, is gold right here. I will be putting in every bet I can with this hand, because if I catch a 7, I'm probably going to win, and if I catch an 8, I still have a very good chance to win. And I'm not going to slow play because I want to build as big of a pot to win later on as I can. There's next to no value in slow playing. We catch a 7 right off the bat, which is excellent. Both of our opponents draw 2, and so we automatically bet 1 regardless of what they were drawing 2. And then we continue to obviously stand pat because we're not going to break a made hand. That would be crazy. Again, our opponents are still drawing and we are pat, so we're automatically betting. Hopefully he makes like some 8 here and thinks he can get tricky and raise. And we ship a 2 buy-in pot. 5-7-6 will be folding. This guy actually made a really solid hand on the end. He's got the best 8 that you can have, whereas we had a 7. There's only 4 ways that you can make a 7, as we discussed. Let's just make that a bit bigger for you. And so he actually got really unlucky to actually make his hand on the end there. And given the fishiness of this general field, I can totally understand why he might think I'd have a worse hand than 8-5. I could easily be doing what I did with 8-6 and so forth. But as it stands, we've got a far greater stack now than the 1k that's required to have as minimum in order to rebuy for a second bullet. And so now we just wait for the half-hour rebuy period to end and take our 1500 extra chips, and we will be in for just our initial buy-in and our add-on for the extra chips. 4-7, we will be we're just going to call here. We are out of position and our hand isn't as strong as it could be. We've also seen Shady 707 show down a reasonably good hand. We'll call 1 bet here because we're getting like 5-1 and he's drawing as many cards as we are. 9-7 is probably no good here. The bet doubles to 240 and I don't want to be involved in this hand anymore. I need to improve a little bit more than that. We are going to make a little mental note here that Shady 707 is playing almost every hand at the table, and so we should probably be attacking him a little bit wider. Again, not playing a 7 without a deuce. So I'm just watching for how many cards are they drawing on each street. And so Shady drew 2, and drew 1 on the end. But Defco takes his lead and carries on. We have a pat hand dealt to us, which is lovely. There's no way I would break this and it's very unlikely that anybody's going to be able to catch up to us. Z-Bad or Z-Bad has only what's left in the pot left behind, and so if he does want to try and stick all his chips in with a draw or whatever, I'd be more than happy for him to do so. We're going to keep standing pat. If Shady 07, 707 gets tricky and check raises here, I'm not going to go broke with this hand. I'm just going to call his last bet because he can easily have a better hand than us. But we pip him again. He should be angry by now, which is great. And so on that hand, as we said before, you count from the top. He had 8-6-5, we had 8-6-4. 4 is lower than 5, we win that hand. With deuce 4-7, we are actually going to raise here because we're heads up against a short stack, and we just want to try and get as much money in as fast as possible. We're just not going to slow down because he's got so little left. We either get it all in or we don't. With the jack, we are now going to stand pat with jack low, as we are a mathematical favourite if he breaks and draws a card. He drew 2 cards and caught a pair of 7s, and so we are actually building up a really nice stack, considering that this is a turbo rebuy and we've only had to buy in for 1 bullet. And so I'm going to actually re-raise here against the button, just to try and get Z-Bad to go away and see if we can't take this pot not 4 ways. As it goes, we looks like we will be playing it 4 ways. But, well, for 1 more bet we can't not, and if we can catch a 3, 4 or 5, 4, 5 or 6, we're looking pretty golden. So there's our 6. We are just going to let Defco lead. There's so much money in the pot, we can't not carry on. And if we can catch a 4 or a 5 on this next street, we're going to win another massive pot. 10's probably no good though. So this is never going to work. I'm just going to tank a little bit and make it look like I'm opting to think about a bet, just to see if Defco might fold back. Oh, Shady 707 patted the river after drawing 2 the street before, 1 the street before. 10-7's not winning, and we've got enough money behind that it's not a problem. And so we've got a straight at the moment, but any 7 or any 8 basically gives us the nuts. As we've had the first opportunity to put in the 3rd bet, we're going to do so and try and isolate again. It's not going to work in a fucking rebuy tournament, is it? So if we can just catch a 7 or an 8 and then just put in every bet under the sun, then we'll be a very happy person. If I can just eliminate some of these players so they don't keep drawing every freaking street, that would be nice. And I'm just going to build this pot because these guys are again so short. If we can make our hand, we are golden. Even if we catch like a 9 here, we'd be pretty happy. Catching another 6 though, not helpful. And now we're just praying. If they both draw, we can actually win with a lot of cards. 9's probably going to win. We can't fold to this bet. We always call this. 10 and 10. Ship it. And so an important part of this game, when selecting your starting hands, is where possible you want to be drawing smooth. So in that hand I was drawing to a perfect smooth draw of 2, 3, 4, 5. If I had been drawing to 4 cards to a 7 that was 4, 5, 6, 7, then even though if I had caught the 9 I would be winning because they both had 10s, but if one of them had caught a 9 I would have had one of the roughest 9s around, and so if they have any like 9-6 or 9-7 with smooth cards, that smooth hand's going to win. And we've now been running for 23 minutes, and so registration's officially closed. Only the players that are in the field will be remaining in the field. This is so pretty, but we have to catch a deuce in order to be able to do anything, and so we just have to fold. Again, I'm going to fold that trash. And so we are actually second in chips out of everybody in the tournament at the moment. And second prize is $145. There are currently 13 players currently still running in the tournament, and so I would expect those 13 players almost exclusively to add on for the extra 1500 chips. Even though we have such a large stack, if the player above us and the 2 or 3 players below us decided to add that 1500, they would be at a small advantage to us, and given our stack size and our position and our skill against the rest of the field, which we think we're doing much better than the field, we are inclined to try and keep up every part of our advantage. So we're just going to be drawing 1 here. Queen's no good for us. We do want to be drawing 2 better than a queen. He's probably still drawing 2. We're still drawing 1. Pair of deuces is no good. But we're going to get... are we going to get tricky here? I'm debating just standing pat. But if he donks into us, I'd have to fold, and so we are going to discard a card here. 6 is a straight, is no good. We just have to... can we bet? Can we bet and get him to fold here? I think we can. Oh, we did it! And so my thought process there is, we have a straight. We have to just check and lose, because these guys have been so spewy. But in part, he's only ever seen us bet the nuts on the river and win against him in showdowns every time. Also, in part, we both drew 1 on the river, and so it's as equally likely that he drew an ace or a king or a pair as it is a card that improved his hand. And so for the money that was in the pot, what was it, like 1700 or something? 1600, 1700. We're betting 400 and 1700, which is 3.5, or 3.5. Well, the pot is 3.5 times our bet. And so that only has to be successful. This is a weird spot, but I'll take the free draw. We only have to be successful there 1 in 3.5 times for that to become a profitable play. And so I rethought my options and did indeed decide to bet, and he did fold, and I'm very happy about that. We make a really good hand there, but get no value, but that's not a problem. If these guys fold, we'll be putting Zbad in for his last 40. We don't have position, I'm just going to fold. I would have put him in for his last 40 and just kept the 3 and the 7, but against a guy with a 3k stack, I don't really want to be doing anything too crazy. And so, another 4 minutes. Defco clearly wins that one. Is Zbad gonna... he does rebuy again. We are going to throw the 8, keep the 7, and raise on our buttons. I can't imagine how many rebuys Zbad has had. I wish it would tell me in the information, but I don't think there's any way to find out who's bought in what number of times. So he's drawing 2, we are also drawing 2. 7 is no good for us. Because we didn't improve, we are just going to take a free street, rather than bloating the pot that we don't necessarily know that we're winning. We are of course going to call 1 bet here. Even though we're not getting great pot odds, we are drawing now to the nuts. And we know that he's going to bet, now that he's stood pat especially, he's going to bet this next street regardless of what we catch, and if we catch best we can check raise, or re-raise. King's no good, we will just check behind. So a lot of our hands there were winning. I don't hate our play. Well, this is the first satellite I've played of this scoop, because unfortunately I have 8-6 deuce here. Oh, it's so narrow. This guy's short stacked, but we're under the gun, and I'm not that strong. I'm just going to fold. Because I have a busy work schedule in the real world at the moment, I can't play nearly as many of the events as I'd like to be playing in the scoop. But as I was saying earlier in the video, I do have Tuesday the 13th and Wednesday the 14th off of work. This event falls on the evening of Tuesday the 13th, and so I can play to my heart's content on the evening and into the late morning of those days. We're just going to be folding here. Just drawing 4 cards to a 5 is just terrible. 2 minutes until the rebuy. I think we've got the auto add-on box checked, but I'm expecting there to be a big box that said, do you want to rebuy? Otherwise, we are going to call here with our 3 cards 7 draw. Zebad gets out of the way, and so it's us and Defco again. He draws 3, we only draw 2, so we're going to lead the betting. He snapped calls, literally he had the call button checked, we're just going to draw 2 again, but this 7 is good because that's a 7 he now can't have. And so here's what we're going to do, we're going to check, let him bet, call, just throw 1-7. Ace is no good, and check check or check bet fold. So we tried to get tricky there, and it worked against us in part because we were trying to be stupid, out of position. And so, note to self: don't do stupid things out of position. There we go. I think that's the first stupid thing I've done though, and I'm going to give myself credit for that because it's been almost a half hour. Of course, this says 29 minutes running on the clock at the moment. It may be the end of the rebuy period at 35 minutes because we did have the 5-minute break. If it goes fold-fold, we would consider raising this, but after one raise, don't want to be getting involved. This guy's sunglasses are starting to annoy me, but I'm not sure why. I think it's because it looks like he's indoors, just because it's so dark. Or at least he's outdoors at night with sunglasses, and that's just daft. And so Zbad here could be buying in for even more bullets, which is almost phenomenal to me that he's bought in so many times. I was planning on buying in maybe 4 bullets and seeing how that goes, one of them being the add-on at the end, one of them being the initial buy-in. As I said at the beginning, if I dropped below that 1k stack, I was going to rebuy up to a 2k stack, but then as it happened, we took down 3 or 4 big pots in a row. Zbad does get there though. The other guy shows down king 10, which is just tragic, although he did draw 2 on the end. No, that wasn't even him. So deuce tray isn't big enough that we can carry on, so we're just going to fold. Blinds are getting really big now, so when we get past use them. When we get past the first 2 draws with a capped bet of 4 bets, it's 6, 12, 18, 2400, and that's basically half of a stack. And so if you get cooled with a good 7 against a bad 7 or something like that, then that's your whole game over. I'm quite happy to see Shady blowing up all his stack though. He's been very active, and whilst that isn't necessarily bad, it's been harder to play against him in several spots. Excuse me. And so second place prize money at the moment is $193. That's obviously going to tick over to having 2 tickets entry for the event, which is great for us because that will mean any leftover money will go into third, and if that can be at least $16, then we make our money back from our buy-ins, which isn't a bad thing. And then we can, should we not get one of those top 2 spots, we can go back and rebuy later. 3 was lower than deuce in that hand, and so, or deuce, it was 98643 versus 9864 deuce. Deuce was lower than the 3, and so that was the card that pipped him. We are raising with a 3-card 5 here, especially against Zbad, who has provided to be a not terribly good player in the game thus far. At least he wasn't playing for high hands earlier like some people were. He might just be trying to time bank to get into the rebuy period. Evidently not, he's just making a decision. Gonna fold this blind. This pair and trash cards is no good. 3 deuce 5 8 jack is definitely a re-raise. And so we're looking for any 4, 6 or 7. 4 or 6 we stand pat, 7 we might break for trying to get to a 7 low. But as I say now, it's like 3 bets and either of these guys are all in. And so we are going to carry on betting because we are leading with regards to our strength, as we had the pre-flop betting lead, and Zbad and ourselves are each drawing 1. He still draws 2, we draw 1 again, pair our 5s, which is no good. Zbad also draws. We're going to hopefully try and see a free card here on the river. And we do, so we are obviously going to break this 5 because a pair's no good to us. And now we are just kind of hoping to get lucky. 4 is fucking excellent. So we're not slow playing this, we're betting. Hopefully Shady can re-raise us, thinking he's all cool. Hell, if Zbad raised us, we'd probably 3-bet with the strength of our hand. But we do manage to take that one down, which is great. So we're now running at 34 minutes, and we've still got our auto add-on checked. So at the moment we've got 33 rebuys, and so we'll see how that changes in the coming moments. Still 12 players registered. And we are on level 6, about to jump up to level 7, which is 408. And then in a moment this is going to become quite a bit more of a crapshoot. Hopefully we should see a final table relatively quickly, given that I expect a lot of the players that have 2-3k stacks will probably bust out fairly quickly unless they're to double up, but then there'll be residual 1, 2, 3, 4k stacks left over that again should go broke. And then once we're at a final table we can almost stop. There we are. So 3-minute break, and the add-on period will start when hands on all tables are completed. Rebuys are still available until then. So we've got our auto add-on checked. I'm just going to turn off my mic very quickly in this break and have a quick drink. So I'm back from my beverage, and so in the chip ranking at the moment for our table, 1,500 chips added, $8 was taken for from our account. Thank you very much. What did I say? We're on 33. We've got 35 rebuys, 9 add-ons of the 12 players at the moment. So that was to be expected. We now have 10 add-ons even, 2 entries to the tournament, and a third prize of $82, which is not to be sniffed at. And given that there are 12 players left in the field, if it was random chance, then we make money 1/4 of the time, given 3 prizes in 12 people. 2 minutes more left of the break. And the other 2 players that haven't rebought yet may still do. As I was about to say, on our table we are currently clearly the chip leader. There are 2 players at the other table that are currently have more chips than I do, and at the moment there are, if average is 5,700, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the 12 players in the tournament have below average stacks. And so what I'm actually going to do now is just pull up the second table on my second monitor. I won't be watching that too closely, but I will just be giving it a brief bit of my attention to see if anything interesting does occur. And so when we come back from the break, we just want to really keep doing what we're doing. There is going to be a slightly different strategy with regards to knocking out players, just because when we come back from this break, players will not have the option to rebuy any longer. The stack that you have is everything that you're going to get, and to that regard it then becomes an absolute freeze out. And so there will be attacking of short stacks. We won't be getting tied up with stacks larger than us heads up, because they're the only types of opponents that can stack us entirely and knock us out of the tournament. And we're going to wait especially for the bubble to come round, although there'll be 4 stacks left for a bubble, and so given that there'll be just one bubble on one table, it plays less into the standard bubble strategy that you'd expect in a larger MTT where there's lots of tables playing. But we're just going to keep an eye on our stack relative to those around us, think about what position we're in when going in for those spots, because say we were on the button and Shady shipped, if the other 2 players folded, do we want to re-raise and just try and isolate? Do we want to let the other players come along, try and build a pot? It's going to depend on the size of our hand or the quality of our hand, as well as a myriad of other things. And so, fold our trash here. We had 11 add-ons of the 12 players in the field. Deuce 8-4 is a reasonably strong hand. Probably defend for 1 raise. So he has, it goes 4-8. I think we're actually just going to try and get this guy all in. Because he's now in, he's worrying about his tournament life. He's drawing more cards than us. We've got 4 cards to an 8 low. By the time the big bet streak comes round, he'll have 2 bets left. He's still drawing 3, which is insane. Unfortunately we pair, but again, he's drawing 3, we drew 1, so we're clearly at a card advantage. And now he has 1 bet left after this one, so we're obviously going to put him all in. Hope that he draws, because we'll also be drawing. We're never going to stamp out a pair. Oh my god, that's so gross. And so that's just the random number generator killing us there. Obviously our draw was much better than his 8-7 draw or his Jack-8 draw, whatever draw he happened to have. And so now we just have to hope to not get smited by the random number generator in our next confrontation. Still 12 players. Blinds currently at 6 and 12. 4 at 8. Will be 6 and 12 in 3 minutes, and then I expect to see the knockouts coming fast and furious. We currently have 55 chips less than an average stack, and so we are effectively exactly average. And to that regard, then we can be reasonably happy with our current chip stack, although obviously we're not as happy as we were 3 hands ago, or a hand ago even. And so big pots like this are really going to lead the action, because unless there's a chop pot, which is really unlikely in this game as there's no community cards to have both players be using, then we're expecting one player to have a really large stack and several other players to either have baby stacks or go broke. And so I expect Defco's probably got a really solid holding here, since he's stood pat on 2 streets in a row. And I can't imagine that he's not going to bet this river for 800 more. Interesting raise. Is that a chop? No, it's not. But that's a really sucky position for him to find himself in. So we're obviously not playing 2 aces. Still have 12 players. Rules didn't quite get knocked out there, although we expect to probably lose Z bad here. It's going to get really interesting when the tournament is down to 8 players, because we will have 8, 7, 5. Oh, it's just pipped on Deuce versus Trey again. For 2k here, we are going to re-raise and try and isolate, especially given that unless Ty comes along, we are the strongest stack at the table. That's slightly less cool, although we do have a chance to win a very large pot. The 8 is solid. For 2 more bets here, we wouldn't be folding. We just really need to catch a 3 or a 6. Pair of fours, no good. We're not actually going to put this guy all in, just because if we do make like a pair of eights on the end, we can save 300. And so we do make a pair of eights on the end. We're actually not going to call this 310, just because pair of eights is never winning. He had a 7 low, he had an 8 low, so this guy got lucky, although we got lucky not to get stacked off for our last 300, or his last 300. And so now, whilst we made all of our hands early in the tournament, now we're just not making any, which is obviously not favourable. But we've got an all-in player here, currently 11 registered players, 3 prizes, but we are hurting for chips. So we should get a player from the other table once the hand ends, or not. We're either winning or going broke with this hand. That's all you can really say on the matter, unless it goes fold-fold, which would kind of suck because I want to play this hand. There you are, so that's that's more than half our stack in. Ace is no good. Automatically betting when he draws 3. Draws 3 again. And we are going to get a bit of our stack back, which is great. We get one of the players from the other table, who happens to be quite a short stack. If it folds around to us, we'll be raising. I'm actually going to see if I limp here. We limp for 3. Either he raises. I'm going to limp here. If he raises and he re-raises, we can go away, or if we doesn't, we can draw for free. Shady's going to do whatever he's doing. And here, I'm not even going to draw here, because I'd rather keep my stack for a better spot, given that we're so short. Looks like we might lose LSD trip 33. Indeed, 9-7 does beat King 8. We are down to 9 players, which leaves us with this unfortunate situation of being four-handed at our table. Really, we want to be down to 6 players as soon as possible, because being four-handed, we are going to be in the blinds half the time, which is less than favourable. The other table, apart from the money that's in the middle, are almost equally stacked at 5k, 5k, 7k, 6k, 7k. Whereas over here we've got 2 10k stacks and 2 shorter stacks. And King beats a pair. This looks really marginal, and so as much as I'd like to be playing that spot and winning something, it's just not worth doing. We would love to see big stacks take out other big stacks at this point. Because the top 2 prizes are the same either way, this advice generally holds out more in, say, double or nothing tournaments or bigger satellites, but because all of the prizes play out exactly the same, it doesn't matter if you finish over the finish line with 10 chips or 10,000 chips. And so to that regard, you want the big stacks to accumulate all the stacks of the other players. And so we are going to re-raise here and get Shady all in with our 1 card draw. And hopefully just not go broke to Defco. That is brilliant! And so either we are going broke against Defco, or taking like a 10k stack. And they both drew, so mathematically we are pretty good here. And like that, we lose a player. We are now 3rd in chips for the whole tournament. We have a 150% average stack, and just like that we've rebounded just by not letting ourselves get in with superly marginal positions and just picking spots. And whilst we did catch to make a couple of good hands there, we did also miss to make some bad hands earlier, and so it's all swings and roundabouts. It's just that you notice those swings and roundabouts far more in a rebuy turbo rather than in a nice deep stack tournament. And so any hand that we play, we've almost got to be prepared to get in for 4k. That's not English, but I'm not going to bother reporting it. If he raises, we re-raise. And our hand is strong enough, and to some degree, if a player is smart, they will understand the dynamic that the big stacks want to just pick off the small stack, and so he won't play against me too much. Although that is a final table. I'm actually going to just call here and draw 2. And then if we catch really good, we can just decide to get it in. We are going to bet and lead. He draws 2. We're just going to stand pat with 9-8. It's a marginal spot, but that one takes that one down. We get the fancy lights. We can probably get rid of these now. I'll keep them up on my other screen, but you guys don't need to be looking at them quite as much as I would otherwise be. I'm not going to play ace 10 9 9 from the small blind here. So let's do a quick count of chip stacks and so forth. We are in position of the massive stack, which is good for us. Defco's probably going to go bust fairly quickly, given that he's got 3 bets. 8 6 4 is marginal. Even though we have the button, we don't want to be getting in the middle of a raisey shove fest type thing. And as we've been saying, 3 places pay, and so when we get down to 4 players remaining, we will be on that ever important bubble. And as much as I would like a $215 ticket, $90 just cash monies isn't to be sniffed at. So ace high beats a pair of 3s, which is nice for Defco. 2 pairs we will not be playing. And he's probably... I'd wager that somewhere in there is the word fish, in whatever language he's typing. Hungarian, I guess. I apologise if I offend anybody with my ignorance. 5-3 deuce 7 will definitely be raising all day. Queen no good. As much as we don't want to be playing with the really hench stack as much as we can, we've now made the nuts, so we're just going to keep betting. And then tank a little bit, make it think, oh, can we value bet? Can we check back? Oh, we're going to value bet. And he folds anyway, but now we are the chip... Oh no, we're not the chip leader. Taj is still the chip leader. But with 8-5 trade deuce, we will be calling a raise there or re-raising, but it does walk round. Deuce 3-4-7 is, again, the best drawing hand in the game. With this guy having 12k, I'm not gonna just re-raise and get it in as deep as I can. Unless, of course, I catch a 5, and then I'm just going to bet every street imaginable. And so you can't check here waiting for them to catch up, because obviously you have the better hand, you check, you stood pat, they bet. And if you're ever standing pat, you don't want them to be seeing hands for free. Either they're gonna, if you have a marginal hand, they're going to improve and then beat you out of the pot, or you're gonna miss bets. But at the moment, we're looking pretty solid. Just gonna send a very quick text message. Yes, I know it's my action. Folding 2 pairs, obviously. So these two 5k stacks provided a Condicate loses this pot, which he's not going to. So we've got two 10k stacks, one small stack, and a stack that's rival to ours. So we're not going to get involved against Tehi with anything but the best draws, just because if it does go cat bet, cat bet, cat bet, for whatever circumstance, he's the only guy that can really put us in jeopardy at the moment. We are going to raise against a small stack here. He might fold for his life if he's bad, or if he has a bad hand, or we might be able to make a better hand and knock him out. I didn't even realise I had auto-folded that, but obviously the trash there is an auto-fold. And so we want Tai to win here, because as we were saying earlier, we don't care if we come first or second. We just care that everybody else goes out. And so we want Tai to be winning all the chips and making all the other players easier for us to pick off. And so now the blinds kind of hit like a pivotal point in that the big bet street is $2,000. And so these guys, if we get to the big bet streets, by the time they've gotten there, they've probably had to put in $2,000 worth of bets anyway. And the big bets being $2,000 means they probably can't play more than one bet a street the whole way through the game. And so now we're really just looking to watch the other players pick each other off, or take out players when we've got decent holdings. See, now I don't know if that was just everyone happened to have trash that hand, but you might notice people now started to get a little bit more skittish. They know that they don't really have any bets left, and getting all in is going to be a massive risk for them. So we are going to raise here. 8-7's like a super marginal pat hand, but we see the dynamic that everyone's folding and doesn't really want to be in pots and doesn't want to go out next because they won't make the money. It's an important aspect to be aware of when watching the table dynamic, but it's also important to know not to go too crazy with just like, oh, I've got deuce 3 9 and I'm going to try and play to that because that's a marginal hand that I might get away with. So he draws 2 there. We are going to throw both of our 8s here just because we have position and we want to be making a better hand when we both draw 2, and with no improvement here I'm just going to give up. We've got enough chips there that doesn't hurt us too badly, and we hopefully will see the other short stacks go out soon. Not going to play with 3-7s, although there is something interesting we could do there, which is re-raise and just stamp out the whole way, trying to represent a 7 low, given the probability that we know our opponent probably doesn't have a 7, given that we have 3 of them. But that's a much higher level play that I wouldn't be using in a satellite filled with fish in this turbo structure, as I keep reiterating. This is fairly ABC stuff. Hopefully Tai wins here. As we've said before, we want the big stacks to have bigger stacks, because that's beneficial for us. And 8 is lower than 9, so we lose another player. So now we're officially on the bubble, and we have a low stack that we can be bullying, who's going to either need to double up or just go broke in the blinds at this point. And so, not wishing to jinx myself, I think is what they say. Not, yeah, I think that's the word. I totally blanked on that. Not wanting to put a jinx on myself or shoot myself in the foot, but we should cash here for some profit, regardless of whether that might be a ticket or just an extra $70 in our account, which is again not to be sniffed at. We're going to raise here with deuce 3-6. This guy can basically get all in for 4 bets, and we don't think the big stack's going to go after us, just because we know that so far Tai has avoided us, and that gives us the inclining that he is a reasonably sensible player, knowing that his equity lies in not going out rather than coming first, and so it doesn't make sense to lose 20k of his stack to us if he happens to double us up. 7 low does beat 8 low. We have made the money, and so now things are going to get a bit more interesting, because we are going to want to try and knock out a player, but given that we don't have the strongest stack in the bunch, we're going to have to try and find a way to double up. Hopefully, Ty just takes a whole big chunk of Zelja's stack and we're laughing. That's a good start. Unfortunately, a naked deuce here is just trash. But we do get a walk. I'm going to race here just to try and steal this blind, just because he knows that this guy's now the short stack, and it's an unwritten rule that the two of us will be picking on him, just because he's the weakest. And so Ty and myself will stay out of each other's way until the balance changes, and then the unwritten rule still applies that we're just going to go after the weakest player. And so he does happen to make something of a hand here, but we're just checking it back. For the strength of our hand and the fact that we both draw two, we do kind of have to draw here, which sucks, but now we have to fold. But against the jack, we do have good equity, and we do want to really be trying to make a stronger position to be not at risk against Zelja, whatever name it is. At the moment, Zyla is just getting picked off again, and as I keep saying, and I'm going to keep reiterating, we don't care if we come first or second, we just don't want to come third at this point. And so if Ty wants to take all the chips off of the other guy and almost all of our chips, I'm not going to complain. 8-7's close, but not good enough. Much like when you play short-handed or heads-up hold'em, it's really hard for your opponents to have hands. That's like one of the things, just mathematically, it's really hard to make hands. And so we could probably get away with betting a little bit more, but by the time 3 bets go in, we're so at risk of just getting stacked that there's nothing much we can afford to do. And so again, we're hoping that Ty wins. Both will draw 1 again. And so that's bad for us. And so now we're looking to double up somewhere. The blind's gone up again. No, we're still at 1250, 2500, which is really freaking big. He's going to be raising almost every hand against us now, knowing that he's got that advantage. I don't like this raise, but we have to make a stand at some point, and we do manage to steal a blind there. I do like this raise, just to be given the dead cards that we have. The extra deuce being dead there is beneficial for us. We get a walk, which is fine. 3-5 is just not good enough out of position. 3-6-7, we are going to play from our button. And again, people are folding because it's hard to have a hand. We are getting in a lot of hands though, which is very nice. Hopefully someone plays with me here. I just had the nut draw is all. I'm going to call here and just draw 2, hope we can catch something. 6 is solid. Call on the cheap street. And hopefully check raise here. And so he lets that one go. And again, now we've swung to being slightly at the advantage. And this is just going to keep happening now until somebody gets cooled and goes broke, or the blinds get so high that somebody just can't keep up. And so now we have a decision, do we keep the 9 or do we throw it? He's still drawing 2, so we're going to keep it. If he had drawn 1, we would have probably thrown that, because if he's drawing 1, it means that he can make his hand and we can't. And And so we're slowly learning people's capacity to play back at us, which is good. And now we are with a little bit more insurance than we had previously, just given that we've got twice the stack of our neighbour to our right there. Within 1 minute, stack will be 1.5k, 3k. We are just going to call here. We're going to try and play a small pot unless we make the nuts against a guy to our left, just because we're so deep. We're a card ahead, so we bet automatically. And we're going to fold our king high. So we lost a small pot there, but it's much better to lose a small pot than get donked off for a massive pot. So there's the blinds up again. And there isn't really the idea if you're playing Hold'em after 10, 12 big blind stack or so, you'd be looking to just get it all in. It doesn't really apply the same in this game particularly because A, it's limit, and so you can't just decide when all your money goes in, and B, the hand strength is so variable. We are going to call here and see how we're doing. We are doing pretty damn well now. We are going to call. We get 5 to 1 on our call here, and if they're still drawing and we're still drawing, then we're probably drawing better. Pair of deuces is no good, but we get to see a free card, which we happily will. We'll both draw one again. Our jack's probably winning, and so I'm going to make this call here. They can often be betting with just air, knowing that's their only way to win the pot, and we can still be winning sometimes with a jack. So they have a pair, they think that's how they can win the pot. We did make a good call. We are going to go on a 5-minute break, which amazes me that we're going on a 5-minute break now. I'm going to put some dead air. I'm just going to mute the mic just while I take a very quick bathroom break, and then we will just come back and summarise our experience in our last few minutes of our break, I guess. Oh no, wait, we have the I'm ready button. No, I'm going to pee, then the I'm ready button. And so I've returned. I'm going to click I am ready, and they were betting on me, which is great. So now what are we not going to do? We're not going to spaz out and double up a Zelja 22 here just for any old hand, because they've got 8k. By the time we give them 8k, they'll have the same starting stack as us, although they're sitting out, which is really weird. No, okay, they're sitting back. I was going to raise and just hope that if he folds, he automatically folds, but no such luck. And so he's going to have to 3-bet at some point and make a stand, but the longer he waits to do that, the happier we are. I'm just gonna, where's my levels? Are we still recording? Check one. Yeah, we are. Raise here. Just give ourselves more security. Fold that one. If at any points he calls rather than 3-betting, like this call is terrible, really. I mean, either way you're going to get all the money in, but I would rather be in a situation where I know that I'm going to get to the end, and that makes my draws much easier to predict. But as it stands, it looks like we're going to win here. Yeah, he's going to bet. He's all in. Stands pat. Draws one. Stands pat. 8-6 beats 8-7. We win a ticket. And so you have finished the tournament in first place. Thank you for playing. So I hope anyone that's bothered to watch this has enjoyed my insight into Deuce 7 Triple Draw. If anybody wants to see me do more of this or has questions, you can PM me at Gothic Lord UK on Reddit. It's I can't show you that. If you can see in the world there, it's just Gothic Lord UK with capital G, capital L, capital U, capital K, no spaces. But otherwise, I look forward to filming my journey through the Deuce to 7 Triple Draw event on the 13th of May. Until then, thank you for watching and good night.